Hi everyone, welcome back to RC Pie. Today we're going to do something that I've been asked for, which is a long-term test. Now, we see reviews all the time, we see unboxings, we see first drives, but no one ever seems to do long-term tests, so I thought it was about time we did one. Especially when it's a truck that is as important as this one is. Because we know that the top end of the market is dominated, absolutely dominated by Traxxas and Axial, really, for trail rigs and sort of all-round crawlers. So this little thing, or quite big thing, is really the challenger. It's trying to get in there, trying to challenge what the TRX4 in particular did with the Defender. So is it worth it? Will it hold up to that sort of thrashing that you are going to give these out on the trail? I've seen how people treat their Traxxases, and is it Traxxases? What's the plural of Traxxas? Traxxi? Traxxum? Don't know. Anyway, I've seen how people treat them, and they're throwing them off this, that, and everything. So I'll show a few clips of what this has been put through. You've probably already seen if you follow the channel. If not, please hit subscribe. And let's see if it's up to the job.
Has it survived?
I think so. Now, I've had this since it first came out as the RGT EX86190 Pro Rescuer. Really catchy name. Good job, RGT. It's now out in kind of the other half of the world as the FTX Outback Tracker. Now, from what I can see, it's exactly the same truck, it's just got different stickers on it. So this will be relevant to whichever one you're thinking of buying. Now, it is priced a bit better than the main competition, than the Defender from Traxxas. It still seems, to a lot of people, for an FTX or an RGT, it seems like a lot of money. But is it really, considering what you get? It's got portals. It's got lockable front and rear differentials. It's got a 2-speed gearbox. So really, on paper, that ticks all the boxes. But are they any good? Do they work? Do you need them? Let's have a look at it. So the first thing I'm going to say is that with this, you've kind of got two routes, and I think they're both very, very valid routes. The first one would be to drive it as a stock truck. That's what I did for quite a while, and I have to say I wasn't disappointed at all. There's a few things that aren't perfect, but of course there are. You know, the tyres, these are the stock tyres. They are not bad. They're a bit harder than you might like, but you know, no tyre is good for everything. These are pretty good in fairly muddy conditions and pretty good on the trails. They're not the greatest on rock, to be honest, but they do a decent job. One of the reasons why I did change them though was because I wanted a bit more weight down there, but that's because of the other route that a lot of people are going to take, which is sticking all this scale nonsense on top. But we like to do it. If you're driving trails, if you're like me, you want to be following that truck and enjoying what it looks like. You want to be putting yourself inside it and, you know, living that miniature life. So I wanted to put stuff on. You probably want to put stuff on. As you can see, there's loads that I've added on here. You know, whether it's the make your own like storage bag, tent, whatever it might be in there, to all these common accessories that you'll get, the boxes and things, and then you stick on your extra bits and bobs, you know, a pair of springs and some cable. Over this side, what have we got over this side? We've got the sand ladders, a pair of metal sand ladders, and it's all adding that weight. Oh, and I also put a working light bar on there, because as stock it comes with a kind of fake one, which is cool. It looks good, it's light. But if you're piling all this on top, then you are making it more and more top heavy, and that's not really what we want. What I've also done, which I'm sure you've noticed, is there's an interior in here, if you can see through those dirty windows, and there is the obligatory wrestler figure has been stuck in there as well, drinking his bottle of wine, and again that's adding top weight. So then you start going down the routes of adding weight low down as well, and that spirals into, well, now it's getting heavier, so now we need to upgrade. But I'm going to take the body off and we'll talk about the sort of stock side of things and how good a truck this is. Now, I've got to be careful, I am in the kitchen, I don't want to get everything too muddy. Oh right, the first thing as stock, the body mounts are nicely hidden body mounts, so there's no body pins on the top. They are body pins that you do use, but they fasten into the bottom of the bumpers, so you access them from underneath, which isn't a bad thing. It keeps it nice, it keeps it clear. What it does mean is it's going to be difficult to fit an aftermarket body in the same way, but you have got points here for putting body posts in, so you still can do it. And it does get a bit fiddly and a bit dirty when you've been driving on the trails, but it's not necessarily a negative. So the truck as stock, well, this has changed a little bit, but what was I forced to do, what was I not forced to do? Right, the radio gear as stock, it's a nice unit. It's the Dumbo RC transmitter and receiver. It's good, it's a 6-channel setup. You are actually only using 5 of the channels, so you have still got a spare, should you so wish. It's got great adjustment under this flap. You've got a switchable setting for your lights. What else is there to tell you? You've got this switch operates your 2-speed gearbox, and these 2 switches on top, or these 2 buttons on top, they operate the front and rear locking differentials, and they do light up as well, so that you can tell whether they're on or off, so that's a nice touch. All you need to do is remember whether the light on is locked or unlocked. I have come a bit unstuck at times trying to remember, but hey, it's pretty easy. So overall, you know, it's looking kind of similar to the Traxxas, isn't it? We've got the full inner fenders or wheel arches, wheel arch liners in here, which are great. Considering what I put this through, the inside does stay remarkably clean. We've got the 2 micro servos here. Those are operating the, well, this one's operating the gearbox. That's for the front differential, and there's another one under there for the rear differential. Not had any problem with those for unlocking and locking the differential. When I first got it, the front one wasn't quite set up right, so I just had a little fiddle with that, but you know, that can happen easily. Now, the servo for the gearbox I don't think is powerful enough. There are a few issues with that, but I've also spoken to Traxxas owners, and they've told me that they have, from time to time, have the same issues with that it's just not quite powerful enough. Probably because you can't adjust the end points. You're not kind of pushing quite hard enough for fear of burning out the servo, and that can get stuck in one gear. But overall, well, not a big issue, because to be honest, I don't think you really need the top gear. And if you really need to change it manually, you can actually just force that with your finger, because it's not something you really need to do on the fly. Anything else to tell you about here? Front mounted motor, pretty low, quite nicely low battery tray there. You get full size 2S or 3S in there, no problem at all. I've only been running it 2S. I think it's plenty. I don't really feel a need for 3S. I know a lot of people do want to push it up, but that's not me. If it can cope with it, you're less likely to break things. If you are happy with how it's driving on the trail, then why up it? Why run the risk of putting all these parts under more pressure? So, what have I actually changed? Well, I've added a winch. So under there, it's actually just held on with zip ties, but that's perfectly good. It's not causing me any major issues for clearance. You know, it's on the line between the axle and the bumper, so that's not a major issue. It means it's nicely slung out of the way, so if I was putting one on, or if I was recommending someone else to put on a winch on one of these, then I would say that's not a bad idea for putting it down there. The only issue that you need to watch out for, though, is that the wire, if it's not held quite in the right place, could be chopped in half by the steering servo, by the servo horn, and that's something that I did accidentally, but never mind, you don't really need your winch anyway. So I've added that just with an inline power supply, and the little circuit board is in there, just velcroed on so I can release it easily enough. This cable is for the lighting on the body, so that just plugs in, so that's not just dangling freely. Now, like I said, if you are running one of these stock, and that includes changing your wheels and tyres, you know, that's basically stock, you don't really need to upgrade anything. It drives nicely. The servo isn't the strongest in the world, it's not the fastest in the world, but it will do the job that you need it to do. It has not failed on me, it's not faded on me, I've not had any issues with it other than just wanting a bit more, and that was only once I started adding the weight. The speed controller, as stock, it's a Hobbywing 1060, perfectly good speed controller, and the motor is an RGT or FTX motor, a sealed can. Again, plenty powerful. It will all run and run and run, and I ran it for months and didn't have an issue with that. I have upgraded. Now this started, I'll show you the motor itself. Here's the old motor. Now I have upgraded this because if we look in here with the built-in cooling fan that's in, I can't turn this motor because I had a bit of a crazy day, to be honest. Out with some friends, and we were running up a hill and up a hill and up a hill and up another hill, doing these steep wheel spinning climbs, thrashing the cars, thrashing the motors. And you know, this bit here, hot, do not touch, is absolutely true. It got very hot and it melted that fan. So that was the end of that motor. It's a shame because it was running really well, but I can't blame the motor for that. That's me pushing it too hard, and not just pushing a stock truck, because what I had done is I've stuck extra brass on here as well. So these rather large portal covers are adding a lot of weight. These are RGT's own units, so FTX will also be selling these. Then I've also put the brass differential cover on there. I was trying to think, is it a differential cover? Because they're not differentials. But yes, they are differentials in one of these because you can unlock them. Something that you need to be aware of, if you are going to buy one of these brass differential covers, certainly branded as RGT, they are labelled incorrectly. Now, maybe this has changed, but when I bought them, all that you could buy were rears. They were labelled as rear. And I thought, well, they'll be the same. They'll be the same, front and rear diffs are the same. So I bought 2 rears. And I put them on, and I couldn't shift on the rear. I couldn't lock and unlock the differential. So it would work, but it wouldn't lock and unlock. Oh, that's strange. So I took it off, I played around with it, and then I compared the cover to the old cover, to the plastic one, this one, and found that it was a different shape. Internally there was an extra kind of hollow in the original. So I was a bit confused by that, and I realised that, okay, these 2 covers were the same, but although they were marked as rear, they were actually front covers. So if you do want to upgrade those, just check if you can get front and rear. Get one of each if you want one of each, but make sure that they're going to be right, and be aware that there could be a problem. If they look exactly the same, they're not going to be right. So I'd added that weight, I'd added the portal covers, I'd added all the weight on the body, you know, all this extra stuff. Although this is a dummy spare wheel, watch out for my video on how to make yourself a dummy lightweight spare wheel. Still, all this other stuff, all this scale junk, as I like to call it, sometimes with stronger language, is adding a lot of weight. And your interior and your figure in there, again, adding more and more and more weight. And so I think that's probably the reason for burning out this motor. So as long as you're sensible, if you want to run it as stock, I don't think you'll really need to upgrade. Just change your tyres. But for me, it's in this progression, and I wanted to push it a little bit for you as well. I've also been towing a trailer with it at times. You can just fit a trailer hitch in the back, they're mounting for that. So that's just mounted in the rear bumper. So what process have I been through with the upgrades? Well, after the motor went, I got myself one of these. I've stuck on brushed. So this is a, which one is this? It's well, it's the Reedy, obviously Reedy Radon 2. It's a 10 turn 5 slot, and it marries up very, very well. The same pinion as was in before, the standard pinion. I tried the 20 turn as well, and it was just, yeah, it wasn't right. It wasn't right. It was far too slow. But this is a great balance, so I'd recommend that motor if you are upgrading. I've also upgraded the speed controller, so now there's a ISDT ESC70 in here, so that's programmable. You know, it's got the Bluetooth app on your phone, so that's all super great. And I did that because if you've added all this weight, to be honest, the Hobbywing 1060 isn't quite good enough. You've not got that low end modulation. It can't quite cope with the weight of the truck. So for a normal car, or if you're just blasting around, it's okay. If you want to do any rock crawling in particular, then it's just not going to give you that fine throttle control. So this, I mean, they're a bargain. You know, they're just over £20, so I don't know, $25. They're a superb unit. I know some people have had some issues with them with the first batch, but that seems to be sorted now, so don't be afraid of this speed controller. And I also got a new servo, just because when I was at the UK Scalar Nationals, I was doing the trails on there, and again, because of all this weight and the knock-on effect on my tyres, I just needed a bit more power and I wanted a bit more speed, because I was doing these trails with a friend and it was taking me ages to do my manoeuvring. So I just thought, right, I'm going to upgrade. I did it there and then. I just got hold of what I could. I can't think off the top of my head what servo it is, but I'll put a link in below. But it's excellent. It's really changed the handling with all this extra weight. So I'd recommend that as well. So it's a case of, if you're upgrading and you're putting the weights on and you're scaling, putting all the scale stuff on, then it's worthwhile doing the electrics. But if you're not doing all that, if you're not adding that weight, you really don't need to. You don't need to spend anything else on it. Just so you know, the batteries that I tend to use all the time are these Z Power 5200 milliamp hour. They're great. As stock, they were giving me about 3 hours of run time. With all the extra weight I've put on, it's probably 2.5 hours now, but still doing a good job. So tyres, I mentioned tyres, and I upgraded on here from these stock, what they're calling Baja Pro, which I think they're looking a bit like the J-Concept Tusks, I think it is. I've been running these Proline BF Goodrich crawlers, and I have to say, from a traction point of view, wow, they have been amazing. That has transformed the truck. So I would highly recommend some of these, and some nice alloys. These are just Endura alloys. They're doing a good job. I've got a few sets of those. I think they are, or they might have been some Amazon ones, I don't know, but they were cheap alloys. But these tyres have been great. However, if you're running stock without all the other stuff, these will be smashing. They'll be excellent tyres with the stock foams. But because I've added so much weight, the deformation in these, just putting the truck down on the ground, is quite spectacular. Now, it's giving you traction on things, but for trailing and for manoeuvring, they could do with being a little bit firmer. So that's why these are clean compared to the rest of the truck, because I've just washed them, and I'm going to put in, I've got a couple of sets of dual stage foams, so I'm going to choose one of those, probably the softest of those, to not step it up too much. I'm going to put those in just to make it a little bit more stable. The traversing of stock is okay. It's possibly the biggest weakness of this truck, but it's okay. But with all the other weight on, and these tyres that are very soft, and the foams that are very soft, the traversing really suffered. So I'm hoping that's going to be improved by putting a bit of a stiffer foam in there. So what else has needed doing? Well, one job that I would recommend that you do straight away is to trim these arches a little bit. The stock tyres and any that are the same size, they are going to catch, particularly at full lock, or when one of your corners is under compression. They are going to catch and rub, and the problem with that is it then rips the corner down here and that's, although it's a very, very strong body, that's your weak point, and it's being caused by the tyres. So I wish I'd done it straight away. If you get one of these, cut it straight away, just trim those off. I would even say trim back a little bit at the front, and that will stop it from getting a split, because the split was about here. So I've had to trim it back a little bit more to try and stop that. It should be easy to avoid if you just trim early on. Or you scale down to smaller wheels and tyres. I know some people that have done, and they're very, very happy with it. I quite like the size of it. As it's called a rescuer, it kind of should go anywhere for me. But the amount of abuse that this has had, there's no other significant damage to the body shell, and that is very, very impressive. Because if you see some of my adventures, some of the normal driving is abusive to the truck, but have you seen the crashes? No! If this truck can cope with things like that, it's doing all right. Falling off that high rock, what damage did I do? Well, I showed in the video, but I'll tell you again, that really the only significant damage, the rails did get bent a little bit. Now at some stage I might replace the rails, but you know, you can overcome that a little bit by just adjusting your shocks, and you can live with it. I broke the rear bumper mount. Okay, that sheared. I did glue it, and it held for another month or so. Whilst I sourced some of these will be easier to get now. At the time, because it was a brand new truck, it was very, very difficult to get the parts, but I know that you can now get them. They are pretty easy to get hold of, just about anything for this truck now. So that was really the only damage from that fall. So anybody that turns around and says to you, just buy Traxxas or just buy Axial because the plastics are better, I don't think that's necessarily true anymore. They may be slightly better, slightly, perhaps, but I've not seen this fail where a Traxxas or an Axial has succeeded or survived. It's as tough as old boots, honestly. The quality is superb. I've not broken or damaged anything on the drivetrain. These are plastic drive shafts. No problem. It's taken a thrashing. No problem with those. Nothing in the diffs. It's basically not been serviced since it first had its first check. I've been running it and kind of running it into the ground, except it's not been run into the ground. It just copes and copes and copes with everything I throw at it. It's incredible. So if you are looking for a trail truck that can do almost anything, can take abuse like you can't imagine, and will just keep running, then honestly, this Outback Tracker or RGT Rescuer is a must buy. It's a fantastic vehicle. It looks great. The number of people that look at this body and say, oh, is it a hard body? It's superb. Everything about it is a quality truck, and I can't recommend it highly enough. If you enjoyed this and you want to know anything else, then drop me a comment. Please like the video, subscribe if you haven't, and if there's another car that I've got, another rig that I've got that you want me to do a long-term test review on, please do let me know, or anything else that you want to see, let me know and we'll see what we can do, and we'll see you again on RC Pi. Thanks for watching.